May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be always pleasing to you, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Earthquakes and plagues, famines, wars, betrayals, families turning on each other. This is an example of the apocalyptic form or the apocalyptic literature out of our scriptures. And it happens, we hear it from the prophets, and we hear it in Daniel, and we hear it in Revelation, and we hear it from Jesus. And that word apocalypse has taken on a grand meaning in our own time, an imaginative meaning, really. And when we talk about the apocalypse, we've learned to think of that as the end and this great cataclysm in which all things come to an end. But if you look at an old Bible and go to that the last book in the New Testament, it will say the Apocalypse of John. And then if you look at a newer Bible, like the New Revised Standard Version that we read from here in our service, it says the Revelation of John, or to John. Because the word apocalypse literally means revelation. But there's also an element of ending. There's also an element of conflict and destruction and terror and strife and suffering and grief. And I think that is something that we can appreciate today. I think that we can actually learn from and gain insight from this apocalyptic literature in the Bible. We can learn from what Jesus is saying and actually find good news in it. Because after all, if you study this form, this apocalyptic literary form, what they say is that the people that wrote this way and the people to whom this was written, these things were written, were typically people in times of great suffering and great conflict, when there was great division, when Rome had taken over Israel and was taxing them to oblivion, and people were losing their land and becoming homeless, when the rich in the south were buying up land in the north, and people ended up becoming slaves or tenant farmers on their own familial land. I mean, this was a difficult time, and this is a difficult time that we live in today. And I want to share with you some apocalyptic moments from my own life, and I want the reason I want to do this is spark your imagination. I want you to think about what are those apocalyptic moments in your life. As I was making a list for myself, one of the things I thought of was standing in a place just like this. I was standing right about here, okay? Not in this church, but in another one about this size. And my wife, my soon-to-be wife, walked up the aisle and wearing her wedding gown and, her red hair. She had it curled that day, which was like very strange because she's got straight hair, but it was so beautiful. And she walked up the aisle, and I just knew that my world was never going to be the same. I was just moved to tears, and I didn't care that anyone would see that I was in tears in that moment. It just didn't matter because this was more important than what people thought of me. And then there was another moment. Thursday nights were darts night, and we would go, Alice and I, when we were first married, we lived near an English pub, right? It's probably very kitschy, but it was, they served English beer on tap, and they had darts, and we would go there on Thursday nights and play darts with the same group of people that we would meet there pretty much every Thursday. And then our first child was born, our son, and about 2 weeks after he was born, Alice decided that she needed a break. Okay, and that's fair, right? She says, I'm going out with my girlfriends. You stay home with the baby. And so off she went. And I remember I had little Tommy in my arms, and little Tommy's 6'7" now. But I had little Tommy in my arms, and I stood there looking out the window, and I thought, oh, it's Thursday night. I should go play darts. And I looked down at this little guy, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to play darts. In that moment, I just knew that my whole life had changed, and that what I was about was this child, this baby that I was responsible for. I knew, to use that gambling phrase, I knew that I was all in that moment. There are many other moments like this that I remember. One of them, well, many of them happen when we lose someone that we love, right? When someone we love has died, especially someone close to us. There's the time before and there's the time after, right? So these are apocalyptic moments. They're moments where something has ended and something has begun, right? But what I want to ask us, the question I want us to delve into in this moment, in this sermon is, okay, that's the beginning and end from, that usage of the word apocalypse. But what is revealed? What has been revealed? And in each of those cases, in the case where my wife was walking up the aisle, in the case where I realized that I was all in as a dad, in the case where my dear mentor and friend had died, and I had never seen someone dead before, and there was a viewing when my friend Thomas died, and I just remember his hands. They weren't alive. They were just still, and it was such a shock. And in each of these cases, what has changed fundamentally is how we are related. And who we are is defined by how and to whom, with whom we are in relationship. And so if who we are is defined by, is truly who we are in relationship and how we are in relationship, then these apocalyptic moments that I have described become moments where before and after the relationships will never be the same. Sometimes that's joyful, and sometimes that's full of grief because someone we love is no longer alive to interact with us. These are moments when the deeper truths of our lives are revealed. That truth that who we are and what we are for is love and relationship. That is what is revealed in these apocalyptic moments. When someone we love has died and our heart is broken and our grief is overwhelming us and our soul feels like it's just pouring out of us and there's nothing to live for and it's just it's unimaginable. That intensity, that very intensity is created by the fact that we love that person so much, that we're so close with them, and to have them taken away from us in this life, in this bodily existence that we know and appreciate and love right now is so painful. And there's an opportunity in that, which is that it reveals to us that is truly what matters in life. We feel it more intensely at that time, but it's also true at all these other times in our lives. What matters and what we are made for is love and relationship. That's what we're here for. Today, we are about to initiate an apocalypse. You got the sound effects ready for me, Glenn? Boom! We're about to initiate an apocalypse because we are going to participate in, support Tyrese and Luke in their baptism. They came to me and said, we want to be baptized. These teenage boys, these teenage young men, they came to me and said they want to be baptized. The time has come for that. And what that means is that they've chosen to be children of a loving God. They've chosen to be siblings with all of us who have made that choice, chosen to be in loving relationship with God and with one another. And at that moment of baptism, their lives change. And your life changes because they enter into your family. As children of God, they enter into your family. And you are a part of their family. We are all the beloved children of God. And that's what they enter into with this ritual. It's no mistake that the images of baptism are images of death and rebirth. It's particularly poignant when you see a baptism like in a river where someone is dunked into the water and then picked back up again. You can see that it's like drowning and coming back to life again. But the imagery that you see around the world in many cultures around baptism is death and rebirth. It's resurrection. It's new life. This is an apocalyptic moment. And in this moment, they enter into a new life. And that enriches all of us. And so that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to baptize Luke and Tyrese